You got to be tenacious because certain moves are going to be very difficult and they're frustrating. But the same thing applies to what we do here. You want something, you can't just give up. Some things, there's no clear path to any of what we do. Can't say that in a year or two or three from now we're going to be at this level, have accomplished acts. We just have to set the goals and then not give up.
Hi guys, welcome into MPods. We're here with Jeff Hauptman. He is the CEO and founder of the Oxford companies. So we're really excited about this interview. So let's just get in. And
Absolutely.
Jeff, could you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do at Oxford companies?
Uh, how long a story do you want? I'll give you the abbreviated and feel free to dig in anywhere you want, but I've been here pretty much my whole life, right down through the public system through U of M. While at U of M, I was supposed to be a doctor, did about 3 semesters of chemistry, biology, vector calc, and said, this isn't what I want to do. And something about real estate really grabbed me. So while at the U of M, changed my major and also started leasing office spaces. So I have memories of dressing up with every piece of warm clothing I had to knock on doors in the middle of winter to say to people, hey, you want to lease some office space? Mm-hmm. And from there, I had a boss that was in Birmingham and he didn't want to drive out to see what was going on with the construction going on in those office spaces. So he said, why don't you take a look at it? And I would give him feedback and say, I think we could do this better. We could do that better. He said, then you do it. And I said, game on. And we started a construction company with just friends. One friend knew how to paint. One friend knew how to swing a hammer. And so we had the construction, we had the leasing. And then after graduation, he wanted me to come to Birmingham and work for him. I wanted to stay local because I was very involved in my dojo. I do karate. And so I got a job with Swisher. And John Swisher, the founder, great guy. He had me just allowed me to do what I wanted to do, the leasing and the construction. And one day said to me soon, like almost immediately after I started, would you like to also be a property manager? I said, sure, because that's the three legs of the stool. The leasing, the construction, and the property management, you pull it all together, and that's how you oversee properties. And he dropped a pile of manila folders on my desk and it's okay, you're a property manager. And that's kind of how it all started, doing the three.
So yeah, that gets into the vertically integrated aspect of Oxford companies that
Exactly.
I'd love to dive into the connection of the three. But before we do that, could we talk about some of the exciting projects that you're working on now?
Sure.
Most notably, Arbor South, which would be the largest residential development in Ann Arbor's history, if I'm correct.
Correct.
And I'm curious what the progress on Arbor South is, and I'm curious also how you would go about thinking of creating a sense of place in Arbor South.
I'll begin with just where things are at. It's been about a 6+ year journey to get us here. In fact, it was just one room over back, and I think it was 2016 or 17 when we first looked out the window and looked down. So now you can you're at the right place. You can see what I'm always talking about, being able to look at this 10 acres of asphalt and concrete and how sad it looks and how we knew we could do better. And I was, like I said, right next door. And I said something to at the time we didn't own it. I said something to the guy, I'm like, why don't you do something with all this? And they just looked at me like I was nuts because it's a parking lot. It's supposed to park cars. That's all you do with it in his mind. But after several years working with planning, working with city council, we've reached a point now where about a month from now, we should have the entitlements, the permissions needed to build what we want to build. And if all goes well, we should be breaking ground probably in July or August of next year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's going to be about 1,000 units, which is about 1,500 people. 200 of those units are in partnership with the Housing Commission. That'll be affordable. So it's going to also be the largest affordable housing project ever, which is obviously huge because we're able to deliver more affordable housing with this one project than has been delivered for some time now. There's going to be over 100,000 feet of retail, all walkable. There's going to be a 200 key hotel. We're still finalizing that. Full service. And of course, 500,000 square feet of office that's already here. When you take all of that, all of those services, and what we're doing is having about a 2-acre parcel of open, curated land in between. That's that creating place. That's giving all of these people, the thousands of people that are going to live, work, and play here, a place to gather. Everything's walkable. We're giving people the opportunity to not have cars, but instead be able to bike, walk. There's neighborhoods all around here, and they're going to not have to get in their car and go drive to some place for dinner. They can just get on a bike or walk. Families could come and hang out here. It's more than just going to be places to eat. There'll be other kinds of entertainment. And some of the really cool things we talk about placemaking, we're working with a group in Dublin, Ohio that's done this before. I highly recommend looking up Bridge Park, bridgepark.com. These guys are brilliant. It's done by a group called Crawford Hoyne, and they have created like a miniature downtown and node. There's no way we can replace our downtown. Our downtown's amazing, but it's also in some ways at capacity. It can't always cater to everybody. And there's things that people would like to see that we don't have down there right now. Imagine this is what these guys do. A farmer's market down this way also. Imagine, or like a crafts fair. Imagine a concert. We do Sonic Lunch right now, and Bank of Ann Arbor does a great job with putting on Sonic Lunch on that little 1/4-acre parcel at Liberty Square. Imagine 2 acres able to give you a big concert. Everybody around here can come to it, right? It's things like that. It's that kind of effort for the public to bring people together, because that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about. When you talk about placemaking, we want to bring people, we want to give people the opportunity to come together, get out and not have to drive. Now, if they choose to drive, we'll make it easy for them, right? There's going to be structures surrounding that central area, but we want to make it as accessible as possible to anybody that wants to come. So hopefully I kind of answered your long-winded answer to your question there.
No, that's perfect. Community spaces, concerts, events, things for people to do.
Exactly.
I think that's a fantastic vision for what else is going to be. And then how else would you think about, instead of people staying in their room, let's say, and going online and not making the community connections that come with being in a residential space? How do you go about thinking of incentivizing those people to go out and
to get out of the house?
Social, and how can
are you referring to people that will live here, or
like how can you design the building so that it encourages those people to make more meaningful connections with the people around them?
So I'll be completely upfront. The guy that's designing this, that's truly the visionary behind the layout, this guy named Russ Hunter. He's done an incredible job of giving vision to this. From my perspective, what we're trying to do is give people the ability to, like I said, live, work, and play, and make it easy, make it convenient. You don't have to try to park downtown. You don't have to drive 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever. Everything's right there. You go out your door and you can go to 5 places for dinner. You can go to a couple of shops, a gallery. That's one of the things we're really pushing for. You see that picture right there? That's my aunt drew that. She was a pretty well-known artist. Just Google Susan Hauptman. So I grew up in a household full of art. And while I have absolutely no artistic skills, unfortunately, I skipped a generation. I have a real appreciation for art in a variety of ways. I'd love to get a really good gallery or 2 down here. I want to create something that is interesting. We don't want chain restaurants and just the basic stuff that you're going to see anywhere. It's got to be something that people are like, oh, I really want to go there. We'll import some more regional retailers from the other parts of the area, but I also want to encourage the local retailers to participate.
So about your story, you completed your undergraduate in urban development at the University of Michigan, and I'm curious, what were some of the critical experiences at the university that really shaped and were crucial to your success?
I think the biggest influence while I was there was I had multiple classes with Kate Warner.
Hmm.
Kate was a professor at the School of Urban Planning. Her focus was on dealing with the homeless, low income housing.
Hmm.
And I was I think some of the classes I was the only undergraduate in her classes.
Hmm.
She was great. In fact, she recruited me a few years later to be president of, I wasn't president right away. They shanghaied me into that later on, but she recruited me to be involved in a nonprofit that does housing in town. She was just a wonderful human.
Hmm.
And it was back then when, because of that class, I'd volunteer in the homeless shelters, 420 West Huron, things like that.
Hmm.
And a small world, I actually, for one of my papers, interviewed Jennifer Hall, who is now our head of Ann Arbor Housing Commission. So full circle.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say she's the biggest influence. Otherwise, I was never huge on the academia side. I was more interested in getting out there and creating things. And so I was in school, but also working most of the time and at certain points almost full time.
Hmm. So when did you know that you were interested in real estate and real estate development and operations? And yeah, when did you know that this was something you'd want to do for your life?
To be fair, this constantly evolves, right? I feel in some ways I'm starting a new career right now. I've always had interest in seeing a piece of land, a building, and thinking, what could I do with that? I don't know why. Call me a real estate nerd, but I always had that interest in what can we do to improve the built space. And I would say sophomore year is when I was still on the pre-med track. And I had, it was time was is the it was like the reset, it was a recession similar to the Great Recession,
Mhm.
where this was the S&L crisis, savings and loan crisis, and banks were tanking, properties were tanking. And there was a lot of for rent signs out there. And I saw and a lot of stuff for sale. There was a building on Hill Street. I think it was 1214 Hill or something like that. And I got all excited because I thought, oh, I was like I was in Mary Markley. And I thought, oh, this is cool. I could buy this building. It's all empty. I could get housing for all of my friends, and then we could fix it up. And so I went home. I got the information from the realtor, went home, told my dad how cool this is. They said, oh, we only need, I don't remember how much it was, a couple $100,000 to buy this thing. He says, great, where are you going to get it from? Because I didn't come from money. So I just figured, oh, well, dad could do it, right? The perception is dad's got all this money. No, dad's a normal dad. He's like looking at me like I'm crazy. So that's when I embarked on, okay, if I can't be an owner, how do I get there? And so it was learning all of the different skill sets. And a lot of people that get to become owners come different routes. They might become expert in construction. They might become expert in leasing, property management. They might own a cleaning company and buy their building. I'm not expert at anything. I just managed to find myself doing a little bit of everything. And there's your vertically integrated investment real estate company.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that. That was one thing that was incredibly unique about the Oxford companies is you guys handle everything from construction to maintenance to operations to HVAC to pretty much everything. So what inspired this business model of yours, and what are the pros and the cons of
Sure.
this?
So I started off leasing space. And when you lease office space, it was leasing office space. When you lease office space, typically the tenant needs some improvements to the space. So I had to learn construction. And when you have those two tools, the third, as I mentioned, the third leg on the stool is property management. Property management kind of brings everybody together, oversees it. And so I had the opportunity to start learning that when I was like 23. And initially, I was doing improvements for other people. I would take someone's building apply leasing, construction, property management, and create a lot of value in their property. Property's run down, it's not doing well. I would get it fixed up. I would find a tenant who likes it and create a lot of value for them. Knowing all the while that's what I wanted to do. So when I was 26, I bought the Galleria for pizzas. So I owned that for up until just recently. So about 28 years.
That was the first one.
That was the first one. Yeah. I asked 80 people if they would invest in me, and 70 of them said no. But that's the other thing you have to have in this business, really in anything in life, is tenacity. So I may not be the sharpest knife in the room, but I'm dirty than drawer. See, I can't even say the phrase right, but I'm tenacious. I don't give up. And that's, I think, if I give your listeners anything, it's you got it. If you're passionate about something, never give up. So
that's really powerful. So Shirley, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so thanks for bringing up the tenacious characteristics and like, so what have you made like some of the choices to stay in Ann Arbor, and have you ever thought about expanding out into other markets or other regions in the United States?
Yes. More than once we looked at going outside. I think the first time we looked at going outside was right around 2006. It was 2007, somewhere in there. We looked at going down to Florida. And as you may recall, that's right before the Great Recession hit. And as I was interviewing people down there, we were just getting a bad feeling. Everyone's all excited, and we just didn't feel right. So we backed away. And then, of course, the Great Recession hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at, I'd say that was the biggest one. We also looked at, out of the Great Recession, we were looking at the Raleigh-Durham area, another really good area. But we started getting opportunities, a lot of them locally. And between having young kids and trying to grow this little company, it just made a lot more sense to stay local. So never really got out. We've owned properties in other parts of Michigan, but we actually sold them all in the last 5 or so years. Just focusing on Ann Arbor. In fact, really, because what our focus is these days, we've moved away from office space in terms of our heavy focus, which is what we've always done, to development. And so it's there's so much opportunity right now for us because of the land that we own to redevelop it, that it just has made a lot more sense to stay in town.
You talk about the pivot from commercial to lately residential more. What were the factors you considered in your decision to make that pivot of the focus?
Didn't completely have a choice on all these things. There's this thing called COVID, right? So COVID leads to work from home, leads to businesses decide not to lease office space. Businesses decide not to lease office space means that filling the space we have become very difficult. Now, we were fortunate in that we started planning before COVID. We had a vision for this area before that all started, but I would say that certainly a big motivating factor going forward is that a lot of office buildings these days are better finding a new use. So whether it's converting them to something else, a warehouse, whether it's tearing them down and building something else, or just finding an owner occupant, the market's really changed for us from the perspective of what we can do with our office portfolio. And so I would say that is your key motivating factor, is that shift. That's the key. Now, I should be fair. I've always wanted to. Again, going back to when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I always wanted to build something. So I think starting off with a project of this size is a little different, but that's why we have a partner who has done this and they know what they're doing. And so we're the local connection. They are definitely development experts. We're still fine-tuning that, building that muscle.
And they've done Bridge Park. And
they've done Bridge Park. They've done stuff in Cincinnati and in Cleveland, and they're all over. They have done billions in development. They know what they're doing. Yeah. And they're good at it.
Yeah. So yeah, that should be very exciting. I can't wait. So you're breaking ground very shortly, but I want to be respectful of your time. So I'm curious. So this is more of a fun one. So
Okay.
what lessons about life have you learned from martial arts and from practicing karate, as you mentioned?
Don't get in a fight. When I teach kids, I tell them their job is to keep two swords from crossing, which is just an old saying, which sounds it's pretty obvious. You don't want to get in a fight in the first place. I think one of the things that applies from the martial arts and that lesson to what we do here at Oxford is we try to work with people at every opportunity. We're not litigious. Some real estate companies have a reputation for if they don't like something, they just sue. I've heard of these guys, they get these reputations. They sue. Well, I'm going to sue them. I'm going to sue. It's just that's not life's too short. We don't run around suing people. We don't get sued. Like it's not this life's too short. I don't want to find myself in that situation. That's no fun. Instead, it's about, like anything, you want to learn a new kata, a set of movements. You've got to spend a lot of time practicing. You got to be tenacious because certain moves are going to be very difficult and they're frustrating. But the same thing applies to what we do here. You want something, you can't just give up. Some things, there's no clear path to any of what we do. Can't say that in a year or 2 or 3 from now, we're going to be at this level, have accomplished acts. We just have to set the goals and then not give up. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Definitely very good. Shirley, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So like last one would be we are currently still students. So yeah, what kind of advice would you give, especially for students or general people in university phase and who are wondering what to do with their lives?
what to do with your life?
Yeah.
Wow, sure, that's a broad one. That's the kind of advice where you really want to probably fine tune it to each individual. But from my perspective, there's a lot of little advice tidbits I'll try to tell my kids or little cliches, but I suppose tenacity is number one. And it's something that you gotta develop.
Mhm.
I'm more tenacious now probably than I was when I was in my 20s.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's easy to want to just drop it and move on, but I think when you're tenacious with what you're trying to do, when you're tenacious with people and giving them an opportunity, that's probably one of the keys. You've probably heard treat people as they want to be, treat people as you treat them, as you want to be treated. I think that's the line. Treat people as you want to be treated. But I think it's really more a matter of treat people as they want to be treated, because what you have to learn in life is that people are different and what you like might not be what they like. And so I find oftentimes that if you're not speaking someone's language, you're going to get frustrated because you're speaking your language, they're not receiving. And a great example is you see that AI profile right there. We have those everywhere in the office. Everyone in that company has theirs on display.
Mm.
And it talks about, that little graph talks about how we communicate, how we want to be communicated to. And I think it's really important because, like I said, not everyone wants to handle things the same way. And if I go to someone in accounting, someone who's way more focused than I am, I'm like shiny metal objects. I'm like all over the place. If I go to someone in accounting and I start doing that to them, I'm going to drive them crazy, because those guys are really good about being focused, and they're going to take a list of things, and they're going to see that list, they're going to hit number 1, then they're going to hit number 2, then they're going to hit number 3, and they're not going to skip around. Me, I'm not going to drop down to 7 and maybe jump back up to 2. I'm all over the place. But again, understand how they work, how they think, is be more respectful of them, and just makes it a lot easier to get along. and get stuff done.
Mhm. And then you mentioned earlier about tenacity, which I don't want to hit on again. And you mentioned developing it. How would you recommend that people develop that tenacity? Is it more nature? Is it more, how can they, do people have a choice in tenacity, or how do you think about developing?
Find something you're passionate about. Jim Collins, the guy who wrote Good to Great, talks about the three circles. And have you heard of that? Three circles? Jim Collins.
Oh,
Check out Good to
the
Great.
hockey guy.
So, what's that?
Like what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you like.
Something like that. Yeah. I think he talks about what you can make money at, because he's talking about your business. So what can you guys be the best at? What do you have passion for, and what can you make money at? And obviously the integration of that Venn diagram is where you want to put your focus. And it's a lot easier to be tenacious about something when you're on the right path. I'm gonna have a hard time being tenacious about, pick something, swimming. I tried it. Wasn't my thing. I got bored. Now there are guys I know that are amazing swimmers. They love it. I think it's great. It's probably one of the best forms of exercise. Not my thing. And I'm not going to be tenacious about it because I'm just not into it. But you give me the opportunity to create something, whether it's our co-working place called Brightworks, whether it's renovating the 777 building, whether it's building Arbor South, or something we all have, hopefully have an opportunity to do, which is raising your kids. See the wall? And those are ways I get passionate, and I can be very tenacious about it.
So if you're passionate, then you're tenacious. Then you can be tenacious.
I think it helps, right? They're separate, but if you're passionate about something, it makes that ability to be tenacious a lot easier. Yeah.
And then just one more, and this is following up on the general advice. I've got a friend who is interested in commercial real estate, and they're thinking about pursuing that as a career. What advice would you give them, or maybe not just commercial real estate, but real estate in general, for students that are interested in pursuing that as a career? What advice would you give to those people specifically?
Get an internship at a company like Oxford, get the opportunity to be exposed to different things.
Yeah.
Real estate has, as you observed earlier with the vertically integrated company that we are, there's so many different roles in this business. It touches upon so many different things. I think when I was starting off, I read that 10% of all jobs are real estate in the country are real estate related on some level, whether you're doing banking, you're a property manager, you're running some kind of construction company, the list goes on. And it just depends on what your friends' interests are. Again, that's finding their passion. They might hate property management, but then they may love the accounting side, or they may hate the accounting side, but then they love the construction side, or who knows?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end it. So,
Cool.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you.
MPods. We appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Shirley.
Bye, Shirley.
Thank you.